So I'm one of those fat, middle-aged white males that writes code. I wrote some code that all of you use every day. It's the routing of the internet. And because I did that, I had a lot of time in dealing with artificial intelligence, which is a model that is simply not financed today. And Rudy said this, you simply don't get the time to do shit. So I want to talk to you about AI. But hold on. Artificial intelligence is what? No one really knows. The person inventing the term, Marvin Minsky, said, asked what artificial intelligence is, he would say it's a general problem solver. It's a machine that would guarantee to find a solution in a pool of experience if you gave the machine a problem and there was a solution possible. And that over time, if you gave the same problem and same task to the machine, it would find an optimal solution. So the only general problem solver we know today are people. But when we talk about AI and the effects of AI, we have to step 5 steps back and have a much broader view. Because there is a huge shift in power. There's an incredible shift in power going from the typical law people, attorneys, and business people, and economists to the techies. And believe me, no one is more surprised than the techies. Absolutely no one is more surprised than the techies. You can measure this, right? There is the smallest common denominator for techies is Star Trek. As soon as you see stuff named after Star Trek, someone didn't know. So if you accept that this shift of power has happened, there's a very different conversation going on between business people and tech people. And that is because they are very different. They approach life very differently. For example, the typical business person or person in a government has a goal. They have a goal. They want to go right there. The typical tech person has a problem. That does not mean techies are depressive or anything. It means that they just sit there and they're very happy solving their Rubik's Cube, but they're not really there. I had the pleasure of sitting between Fortune 100 CEOs of the old economy and the new economy, and they talk to each other. They use the same words. They don't understand a single word the other guy is saying because of this. Because they find very different solutions, right? Typically, a business person, in order to achieve their goals, will make a plan. And for the last 40, 50, 60, maybe 70 years, we have denounced the coolest feature of plans. The only people who knew were the military, right? The military always said, no plan survives the contact with the battlefield. And we pretended, in government, in large projects, we pretended that a plan was just to be executed like the plan. Since we found out that the coolest feature about a plan is that you can change it, we immediately created a religion out of it, call it agile work. Right? But techies, on the other hand, this is the cool thing. You can change your plans so you can still achieve your goal. Techies write programs. And programs are the absolute contrary of being flexible. They are logical constructs. You have a precondition. The program, if the precondition is met, will guarantee a postcondition. That means that if the precondition is not met, if whatever the program was made for, you haven't started it properly, then the only thing the program will guarantee is garbage. And yet, with these massive limitations, technology has had such a big impact on our lives and our economies. What we have done with AI already is we have made programs so much more flexible. And this is where you see the shift in economy happening right now. Rudy's already talked about the platform companies, and I want to make this numbers a little more real. If you look at a typical platform, and by the way, a platform is not a friendly ecosystem where people try to co-invent and collaborate. A platform is a market-dominating entity that is only nice to other people so no regulator comes apart and splits it up. A platform, but great things are created out of platforms. You have to imagine this too, right? A platform basically is a commercial entity. Today, on average, all of the revenue in a platform is generated by 20% of the resources they spent. Then shareholders come along, and for some strange reason that financial analysts only know in their dreams, they say, like, the shareholders should be getting 27%. That means that there is now 53% money left over. And then these platforms start doing other things. Right? Normally, in the first industrial revolution, they would have bought houses and boats and whatnot. All these people already have houses and boats. In the platform economy, they start invading other sectors. If you take an example, Jack Ma from Alibaba can go and say, we're going to invest $1 billion into creating a cancer medication. This is not a pharmaceutical company. This is not even a healthcare company. But invest $1 billion in that. After a year, it fails. He has to step in front of the press and say, ladies and gentlemen, we just spent $1 billion. It didn't work. We stopped the program this morning. Maybe we'll analyze the data and do it again. What do you think is going to happen to Jack Ma? Absolutely nothing is the worst case. Best case is someone says thank you. Second best case is someone goes, oh, you've created a lot of patents and the company becomes more valuable. If exactly the same thing would happen in any other economy, in any other business, the CEO of a large pharmaceutical company would do the same thing. Announce to spend $1 billion. It didn't work. Has to step in front of the press, say it didn't work. What is going to happen there? To say this positively, there's a great career opportunity for the number 2 in the company because the CEO is going to be fired. So no one ever tries. No one ever tries because there's simply no motivation in this. And the other guys try 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4th time, 5th times, maybe then it works, and then they just eat the other people's lunch. This is happening at scale. And this is fantastic because seemingly we don't, especially in economy and politics, don't change until we get our asses kicked, and we're getting our asses kicked. I have the pleasure of spending a lot of time with the German government, and we've looked at this, what happens with government? Government needs to change dramatically or die. I mean, there's already a lot of people out there that claim that the natural follow-on organization to a national state is Facebook. And I don't know who of you wants that. I wouldn't. But if you look at the way people organize themselves and where they take their input from and their values and how they act, that unfortunately could become true. And why is that? Well, because stuff is very slow, right? We have no agility. We have no way to react. We bring out concepts for data sharing, and then it takes 15 years to implement. We bring out concepts for identity, and then it takes 20 years to implement. And fortunately, you guys are at the head of this. You are the picture, the poster child for everyone because you've gotten it started, and you've done it in a reasonable amount of time. But one of the things that we do in Germany most is we try and teach people to work in an agile way. To like make a hypothesis, test the hypothesis, then go next, like have an iterative way of achieving goals in order to be faster. Or for just a hiring process in government, take it down from 9 months maybe to 2 weeks because no good talent is gonna wait 9 months. Same thing for user centricity, right? If you don't do something your users like, you have a problem. They'll use something else. And I mean, we often complain about the data hungriness of Google and Facebook and so on, but their market share in Europe is much larger than their market share in the US. And all these people, of course, use Google and Facebook because they hate it so much. Right? They don't. These companies do what people want them to do, and either we find a way to teach to people how that it makes sense to do it differently, or we get them to like what we're doing, and this can be done through user centricity. All the implementation of this will probably go through digital technology, and AI is probably going to be the major driver of this. Why? Because you don't have any budget today to do all these great things and reinvent everything unless you can dramatically make whatever you're doing today much cheaper. Otherwise, there's simply no competition available today. And the capital has already made that decision. If you look at those numbers, actually, the numbers are a bit old, but the relation between these numbers has already worsened since we took the data. 3 Valley companies together are worth more than the entire publicly listed German economy. And I know Germany is a very small economy, so maybe that's a bad comparison, but it scares the shit out of our politicians. And I think it's totally unacceptable if we translate this back to plain English, right? Capital might be stupid, but on average, it is totally right. What capital is saying here, the future is more in these 3 companies than the entire industrial economy of Germany. So that means we can commit suicide, or it means we change. I opt for change, but then we have to be clear on what we are looking at. And we can see this happening in the macro system. We can see this on your left side. You'll see the economic factor, like how much revenue do you make per employee if you're Apple or if you're Volkswagen, right? That is dramatic. That is a dramatic change in how profitable can you become, and this is what most companies still go after, no matter how much sustainability they pin into their marketing budgets. On the right side from you, this side, you will see the contribution of labor towards the GDP is going down, and it's really dropping off right now, meaning how important it is what the citizens do and contribute to economy is going down dramatically. These 2 together mean that there's a huge shift in the economic world, and there is a huge shift in the social world. And we need to deal with this right now, because otherwise there's going to be an interesting problem. Unfortunately, no one can agree about the future, right? So here's a summary of some studies saying, yeah, what is going to happen in terms of job loss and job wins and so on. And you see, even within a single research institution like Forrester here, people can't agree. Right? Just to point out the very depressive view here, that's the Bank of England, and they have all reason to be depressed, right? People cannot agree. The only thing they basically can agree on, that the change is coming and that it's going to be substantial. And here is what is most important to us as European countries, is the better you are in industrialization, the better you are in the way we live and organize today, the more at risk you are that you will not be making the jump to the digital age properly. Because we're approaching, and Rudy has said this, we're approaching new ideas with old-time thinking. We have been thinking industrialization, analysis, and contribution for so long that we can't even rethink. We are at the biggest risk, and you can see this. According to the OECD, Germany is at a much higher risk of Estonia, but still Estonia is pretty much up there because you have done such a fantastic job in building an economy in no time that works in the industrial standards. But that also means that people are used to this now, and they have a hard time to change. So let's have a look about change in the world. We have 3 players, theoretically. We have the United States, we have China, and we have Europe. In the United States, on artificial intelligence, there is a government strategy. The companies, the powerful platform companies, do not agree with the government strategy since Mr. Trump arrived on stage. How you can see this is that before Trump, the only way to make a career, to actually have an influence at Google, was to move to Mountain View. Now you can hire up at Google at Zurich, Munich, Madrid, all these places, and actually get an influential job. That was the immediate reaction to the disagreement between the platform economy in the US and the government. The one thing that the US are really weak at is the knowledge. They simply do not have so much knowledge because in the profit maximization scheme, it was totally legal to outsource if you didn't know. You just say, okay, I'll buy it, but I'll have a market advantage then. In China, we have a government strategy, a very firm one, China 2025. We have platform companies who have the power to reinvent a lot of things. These platform companies are extremely well aligned with the government. In fact, most of the government is part of those platform companies. But we also, because the Chinese economy has been built bottom up, don't have knowledge about the entire value chain yet. So Europe. I mean, in Europe, we have probably double the amount of strategies than we have countries. Everybody's published one, and then the opposition has published one. But the problem is that we're not executing any of those strategies. We are not executing them because we're having a public debate about them. The publication of a government strategy in most European countries creates a public debate, and nothing is executed. This public debate is completely worthless. Why? Because it is happening in fantasy land. Like, normally, a good debate would be you start a strategy, you publish it, you start executing it, you collect data, you evaluate what you've done, and you change what you're doing. If you skip the execution and evaluation bit, you're just making assumptions out there. You can make any assumptions, right? That's a serious problem that we're having. For example, in artificial intelligence, the German government brought out a strategy. They wanted to invest 3 billion. Everybody out there jumps in and say, like, oh, this is not enough money and blah, blah, blah. And I go like, okay, guys, how about we spend the 3 billion, show that we've done great shit, and ask for more money? If you are able to spend the 3 billion in 3 weeks and are able to really make a difference, I don't think there are many people who wouldn't give you the money. But we haven't even started executing. And this is a very general problem. In Europe, entire Europe, your guys are better at executing the strategies. But in entire Europe, we do not have a single platform company. Simply because our risk scheme does not allow these type of investments. If Google was founded in Europe, it would have never been able to collect data for 12 years at a lot of cost to the investors, but now it has a dominant market position. In Europe, Facebook would have been forced to sell ads to the users at 1 million users, and it would have never had 1 billion users. Like, there is a serious anti-risk mindset that we need to jump through and get right. The one single thing we have in Europe is we have knowledge about the entire value chain. We have knowledge about the entire value chain, and that means that we have the raw material all this automation is made of. We have spent 150 years industrializing. Industrializing in a way, and I'll explain about it, but it took us 150 years to automate up to 29%. Rudy has shown exact these numbers. They're from the World Economic Forum. Mostly presenters like me choose those because they're conservative numbers. The prediction is by 2025 we'll be up to 52%. That means that we are accelerating the way of automation way beyond what has ever happened in industrialization. So now we need to look at, okay, what the fuck is this digitization? What is it? And what is artificial intelligence? As everybody says, it's a major driver in this. Well, it's quite simple. Let's start it the German way. I'll tell you what it isn't. Artificial intelligence is not just about finding patterns and making small predictions. Actually, the human brain is so much better at finding patterns, we're just very bored at looking at a screen all day, than machines are. What artificial intelligence is about is it is about the end of the industrial age. The thing that has made us so prosperous, the thing that has given us the ability to do things that we do today, industrialization, is coming to an end right now. If we say this, we have to go look through industrial age, right? We have gone from a society where everybody lived in and of agriculture. We've went to splitting work and building manufactories, and then using the force of steam machines and robots and so on to actually build it. All of that development was driven by a single principle. That single principle is economies of scale. Knowing that if we produce a lot of something in an automated fashion, we can produce a single piece cheaper. That is what everything is about. And we have learned how to do this. It's in everybody's head right now, right? When someone asks you, can we do something better? What do you think? You say, okay, let's look at what we're doing. Let's standardize some things. Let's take the one with the highest volume, and then let's build some automation to get rid of that and go out there. Like, this all sounds very theoretical. We basically standardized stuff together, and then we invented marketing to bend reality so people think they want what we have to offer. And no one said this nicer than Henry Ford, right? He said, you can have any color as long as it's black for the Tin Lizzies, because his assembly line would only produce black ones. They didn't do yellow ones. So what we're doing with artificial intelligence is we're finally completing that automation cycle. Because industrialization is not automation. I mean, we have to look at all the things that are done as humans. We have to standardize them together. We have to analyze which has the highest volume. And for the ones that have the highest volume, we then build a factory or a process or an administration to run it cheaply. Because we then can argue why it is worth this entire investment of building a factory. With artificial intelligence, we no longer need this because we have a general problem solver. We have a machine we can give a task to, like a human, and if there's experience on how to solve that task, the machine will find it. So in the new age of automation, no standardization required. Right? Individual solutions for everything, just by adding experience to the machine. That is what's coming, and that is what's already being executed. So we need to look a little bit at artificial intelligence. And it's, as I said, the German way is always explaining what things are not. So let me explain to you what artificial intelligence is not. Number one, and that's really important because a lot of very wrong decisions are based on this, machines do not understand anything. Machines cannot have a dialogue with you unless the dialogue is predicted. Of course, I can have a machine simulate your voice, right? But that's, you think about this like the 80s drum machines. In the 80s, you would exactly know when the drummer of a band was called Casio, and then we figured out that no drummer in the real world could play as exact as Casio drummer, so we changed it, we just put it off by little microseconds, and now drum machines sound natural. We're doing the same in voice synthesis, but that doesn't mean that machines actually get the meaning. This is mainly because the algorithms we're using are based on correlations, and the algorithms we're using in our head and explaining the world, creating understanding, are causal relations. This relates to that, this relates to, and we're certain they're causal relationships. The brain is a causality processor, not a correlation processor. Machines can do, if you give them an understanding structure, they can compare incoming data perfectly. This is like this is not like this, and so on. If you give it an understanding structure, machines can argue and reason all these things, but they do not understand. So whenever someone tells you machine XYZ understands anything, you know that the marketing record is running. The second one, that is responsible for a lot of crappy discussions that we're having that is holding us back from actually implementing stuff. So, and I can tell you where it comes from, right? No one wants to talk to computer scientists. We always talk gibberish. No one understands us. So we thought we were totally great when we tried to explain whatever we were doing, simulating natural chaos and blah, blah, in neural, to give it a humanly understandable name. This is why we called it neural networks. A neural network, and we try to explain, this is almost like your brain, blah, blah, blah. And our thinking was, wow, people are gonna go and say, wow, very interesting, can you tell me more? All we wanted to have was a conversation. What we didn't expect, that people were going out there and saying like, wow, this is gonna kill us all. And that's not what we expected. So let me clean this up. A human brain and an artificial neural network have nothing to do with each other. So a human brain has 84 billion neurons and runs on 20 watts. A large neural network has 1 million nodes and needs half a nuclear power plant to run. Right? That is how far they are apart. And if you are thinking linearly, you can tick now, has nothing to do with each other. If you're thinking exponentially, you could go and say, okay, Chris, that means in 2029 we can build, if Moore's law holds, meaning that the compute power per energy unit or per dollar doubles every 18 months. Every year someone says it won't hold, but it will, and the quantum computer is coming as well. So in 2029 we can theoretically build something that has 84 billion neurons, and runs still on half a nuclear power plant, but it'll work. And then some people predict that we'll have the singularity, the machine that will understand that people are mistreating the planet and maybe kill us all or whatever. Guys, the electrical system in the brain is the most simple system. It took us 80 years to build it. In the brain, there's also a chemical system. The chemical system is fully analog. Your brain is swimming in a soup of chemicals. And depending what that soup is made out of, your brain gets reconfigured. You can try this in a personal experiment. Go to the bar tonight, drink a bottle of wine by yourself. You can feel how you're reconfigured. Totally. Right? This works in smaller steps too, but the big steps are obviously. Anyway, this chemical system has not been built yet. There is an infinite number of configurations of the 84 billion neurons out there, and we can't do this. And then there's a quantum mechanical system in the brain as well, and the quantum mechanical system, only 5 years of published research on this, is yet more complex than the analog chemical system. So it took us 80 years to kind of get to doing the first system in the brain. We know there's 2 more. They're more complex. It's very unlikely that the machine that says I actually will be around anytime soon. But the machines that we have today change our entire economy. So can we please stop having the discussion about 150 years when right now we have machines that change our entire life and that do not have a will, thus cannot be moral or amoral, right? It is us who's driving those machines. We can build an autonomous weapon. Should we do that? It's a human question, not a technical question. Engineers build solutions that we understand, of systems that we understand. We don't understand what I, self, and so on is. We don't build that. Number 3, and that's another dangerous one, is that artificial intelligence has always gone through these hypes, right? People go to, there's expert systems, they pretend that expert systems will solve the problems of the world, didn't do it, no one believed in it. Then we had the first attempt, neural networks, solve the problem of the world, didn't do it. Then we went to knowledge management. It goes like this, right? Currently, we're in the hype of machine learning, and machine learning are great algorithms, but they will not solve all the problems in the world, simply because you cannot solve all the problems of the world with a single approach. I mean, you can try this going at home. It's a perfect experiment. Go home to your family and deal with every problem, every task that you're faced with in exactly the same way. This is the recipe for the biggest fight you've ever had at home, right? There are more than one algorithms, and all of the good solutions combine more than one algorithms. If you want to think AI, or if you want to classify AI, you should better think like this. Think of narrow AI. Narrow AI is the application of a single algorithm trained by a data set to optimize a single task. I sometimes call this is the programmer's answer to McKinsey, right? Because this automates the shit out of a single thing, but it cannot be transferred anywhere else. That's great. And I have no clue why people believe this is black magic, because we've been optimizing stuff in our administrations, in our businesses, and so on for a very long time. This is just a better way of optimizing stuff. It's not magic. And we should use those, but they are not what brings in the strategy. Just to demonstrate this, my favorite narrow AI company is a company from England, and they've trained a neural network to improve tomato growth in greenhouses. So you connect fertilizer, water, light, bing, you've got 20% more tomatoes. That's great, right? Unfortunately, being in England, the tomatoes didn't taste great. The company wanted to switch to beans. The AI killed all the beans because they wouldn't turn red, right? Every time you do this, it works in this little island, and when you want to do something even that is very close, you have to retrain from scratch. So island solution, highly optimizing, works really well, doesn't do the big thing. This wouldn't be worth writing national strategies about. On the other end of the spectrums, you have those AIs that actually have will. So I'm not the dystopiast, so I'm going to tell you the utopian version of this. The robot that will step in front of you and say, I love you. and knows what it's saying and means what it's saying, you're going to have to wait for that sucker for another 150 years. So until then, there's Tinder for all the lonely hearts. In the middle is what we call horizontal AI. AI that is pluggable into multiple problems without having to learn from scratch. And that makes a huge difference because normally the learning time for an AI on the right side is like 18 months. And if you have to start from scratch all the time, you lose tremendous amount of time. Automating an entire company or a government just with narrow AIs will probably take you 100 years. With horizontal AI, your learning curve, your speed goes up exponentially because you can actually keep what you already had. So this means with artificial intelligence, we get to automate 80% of everything right now with today's technology. And that is what is happening in the next few years. And we better get prepared for this because otherwise, the balance of power would be shifting rapidly in the world, and probably most people will not enjoy this. When I say this in Germany, people usually tell me, hey, Chris, that's great, I get it all, let's make a 30-year plan. And a 30-year plan kind of sucks, right? Because it doesn't take 30 years. Like putting electricity into the system until it went exponential, that took 45 years. The smartphone, less than 1 year. And to make an example that might be dearer to our hearts is, automotives kick the horse off the road in less than 10 years. And that is despite us making laws and regulations explicitly against automotives. For example, there was a law in Germany saying that you would have to have a guy with a flag in the car who would jump out at any crossing and wave the flag so the horses wouldn't be scared. So I have horses. I can tell you the horses are way more scared of someone waving a flag unexpectedly than of a motor that they can hear for 10 minutes before you see it. It is not going to take very long. And here's the prediction. Kai-Fu Lee, who used to be the head of Google in China and now is one of the most influential Chinese investors, says the race is already done. There's only gold and silver, and it's going to be US or China. And then on the other hand, you have the Washington establishment politics advisor that says, no, we've got 30 years. The truth, of course, is somewhere in the middle. But it's much closer to Kai-Fu Lee. And this is why we have to think about it. We have to think about AI not as a way to pattern match or to predict stuff. If you want to think about AI, think about what would happen if you could make your experience, the experience of your country, the experience of your citizens, executable at scale without anyone being present. AI is not a question of research. It's all out there. It's a question of doing it, and we are horrendously bad in executing in Europe. We need a new model of work to execute. And basically, there is two things that machines can't do. Number one, do something from human to human. Unless prevented by society, anyone prefers the human to have a service against. You can see this, the richer you get, the more personal service you get. Right? Everyone prefers this. The second one is creativity. These two traits machines do not have. These are the traits, the ones that create the serotonin, the ones that make people happiest when they do it. Unfortunately, in industrialization, people are so busy specializing that they don't get around to those. I think we need to look at creativity for a short time. Creativity means the artistic type of creativity, where you're able to go against mainstream. It's not just painters. This can be in business, this can be in government, go against mainstream. It means the engineering type of creativity, where you cobble together a solution out of unexpected parts, parts that no one said it would make sense. And the pioneer creativity, where people are simply more happy by taking more risk. Like in the olden days, people used to walk through the desert to try and discover how nature worked, or step on a boat and try and find new countries. And they needed more risk to do that. They were explorers, pioneers. Today, we bore these guys to death. All they think about is, how can they do something? They take a balloon up to satellite level, jump out of the satellite with a little advertising on the back, like, great for them, contribution to society, 0. If we look at this, and we've already seen it, the way we think about what people need to do in the future becomes way more human, way more leadership focused than management focused, way more creativity focused than standardization and execution analytical focused, because all of that the machines can do. If we implement this properly, and I hope all of you work on this, we might actually arrive at a society where the community, again, is more important than the self. It used to be like this, right now it isn't, but it should be. Where facts are more important than opinions, and where thinking is more important than feelings. That's what we can do because a fundamental change can come. But if we don't execute it, definitely something else is going to happen. Maybe profit maximization, which would be the US model, maybe social cohesion, which would be the Chinese model. This could be our model, Humanism 2.0, if we actually start implementing AI. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Stand on either side of you. So please remain on the stage for a question. Just quickly to reflect, again personally, because I work with data scientists daily and I have to sell AI and machine learning, is still such a hard thing to do because clients constantly want to optimize people out of their processes and replace them with AI, but we're not there yet. So I always start with a small education exercise.
Well, I mean, see, it's not just data scientists. The whole point is that we're so afraid of AI is replacing us. Come on, I mean, the whole, and then we have this discussion about AI surpassing us. This is the whole point why we built machines. I mean, do you want to be a crane by job description? No, the crane can lift shit much better than we can, exactly. And we like it. And the AIs are not going to blast us off. The whole point of data science is just asking questions of what we already know, right? And you get an answer. AIs can't really do that because they don't know what to ask, but they have all the methodologies in there. So data science is create insight, AI is more create action.
Thank you. Yeah. Over to you, Marelis, for questions.
Again, since we're super short on time, I'll just take one of the questions from the workshop, and I encourage you all to grab Chris by the sleeve later on in the coffee break. So I will also modify this question a bit. So you've before said that Estonia is kind of a poster child in many ways, and then here's a question: what can Germany learn from Estonia? I try to limit it, maybe the single most important thing that Germany could learn from Estonia.
Well, that's super simple. I've heard this yesterday in the evening discussion we had. Someone from, I don't even know where, another European country, said to the Estonian who was presenting, yeah, but you have 10% people who are not even literate, so they can't use this, that, and the other. So we can't do it. And the guy simply stood there and said, like, yeah, but because we can't do it for 10% mean we shouldn't do it for the 90%. Let's do it for the 90% first, and then find out how we can do it for the 10% too. And that is something that is not happening in Germany. In Germany, we're stuck with, oh, we can't do it for everybody, let's not do it. And I think that's what we can really learn.
Thank you very much.